Oh my goodness, here we go. All right, so for those of you watching, I couldn't figure out how I wanted to um, tell the story that deals with the four magics, which is synchronicity, butterfly effect, mantics, and theophonic presence. So in the video, this video will be attached to a discussion on Substack about what those four magics are. But I think, Deb, what I wanted to do is I wanted to tell the story and you're listening, because then it's just sort of us laid back, me trying to tell you what happened. And and then people can read about the four magics and make their own conclusions, arrive at their own individual perception about is it something they might be interested in taking on to navigate our present choppy waters. Anything you want to say about that before I go on?
Um, I'm very excited to be I'm just very excited. I I do kind of want to tell the backdrop from my end, but I can't tell if it matches properly or not.
Well,
So,
just go ahead because it's up in the field. Where this is very loose woven.
all right. So I was Diane and I were reading the next one of the creation exercises for Vital. We were on affinity. And it's not like we're treating these as uh you know cavalier. It's but we didn't expect the hugeness of the experience to happen. The layers of affinity really seemed to just go out into the uh, so many layers of existence beyond what we were thinking of two people meeting to read creation exercises. It was stunning, stunning. And we both felt it. We both felt the reverberation of that, like from source into us and us out into source in a way we felt we could direct it how we chose. So we did. And the second one was I just found out, literally before getting on this call, that my grandson has joined a club whose purpose is for musicians to teach the younger kids. So
Wow.
tomorrow he's going to start. Um, that will be his first time teaching somebody at the middle school, helping them learn their instrument. And that just seemed important as a backdrop. And last night he asked me how to send some music recording to you and got your phone number and got you all set up so he can send you texts. He generated it. He generated that. So that's the backdrop that I feel present to, and I just feel so excited.
One of the things that's hard to recreate for a public audience is when a collective of people have been living something. Um, it's one of the reasons I wasn't going to do this. If the reason I'm doing this between the Substack that'll go out tomorrow about it, maybe using creation-based intelligence that we carry, which is mental perception, sentient intelligence, and empathic response that is in You as the Mind of Creation book. That when I say to people, there are two separate realities here, there are two functioning matrices that basically interfere with each other, not in a negative or positive way, but one reality operates on behalf of life and the other operates against life. just simply said, and we're in the meta point of the deconstruct and construct of that right now. So, these four magics I want people to read about and then um, watch this video and maybe have their own direct experience of someone who's living part of this, um, can be of value to people. And after what happened yesterday and this morning, I arrived at the conclusion that yes, I was going to take this out of being in-house and I was going to gift it to the general public and then see if the general public would like to spend a couple of, have 1 day or 3 days uh, for a short period of time just discussing this because people have trouble. We're moving from objectified reality. We're in a small box of definition of what words mean to a relational field, which is words have meaning according to the relationship with reality you have. They have meaning, and meaning is directly related to the connection of the vibrational field of intelligence of which you're a part, and consciousness is a vibrational field. So just to go what you're speaking about, it, the third one I want to do is on the vitals. I think I've done something on the vitals already, but I don't. I, as part of the field of Tantramat, I don't have the privilege anymore of being an isolated conversation because who knows that these posts might touch one person, and that would be enough. That would be enough. So, in the model, you're in the present thing you're talking about. Deb's talking about the five vitals we're doing creation templates on, craving what. Um, so there are five of them. They're vulnerability, intimacy, transparency, affinity, and love. But we call these vital forces. And what has happened to us is as we begin to do the creation exercises, we'll use like vulnerability, for example, craving what vulnerability is for me is, craving what being vulnerable is for me is. We begin to feel them active in manifested realities, that manifestations in reality in the field. Hence, Diane and Deb were working on what was it?
Affinity today.
Affinity today. And her grandson is practicing affinity, but did he learn that? No, it's what we call in the field. It rises in the field. And so it's perfect segue into the next section that we're not doing today. So I'm going to just read something from the post I did um, a couple of days ago about how to pay attention to false um, persecution. Just going to read the last part of it because it's important. It applies to the story I'm going to share with Deborah because I just do better when she's here. I'm not someone who could just talk into a screen. I have to have an audience, and Deborah's been listening to me for a long time, so it just creates an affinity within which I can feel comfortable having the conversation. So here's a quote from the end of that section on perceived persecution, the Substack post. These storms of false persecution are designed to exhaust and confuse, but they do not own the ground of our being. Now, why I wanted to read this is the ground of our being is who we find ourselves being, and versus what we find ourselves doing. But in certain ways, we pay attention from these realms of being, which are creation based. We begin to recognize what's ours to do, or we find out that we did something we didn't realize was part of a creation based system. It's hard to put in language. It's not hard to put in language. It's hard to build build a way of speaking that crosses the bridge between something that quite a few people have been living and experiencing and people that don't have the same culture of language
Yeah.
that we've been living in. So what steadies us is the deliberate cultivation of coherence and presence. Presence is the ability to actually be here, attentive to this breath, this moment, this person, without being hijacked by panic about what might happen or by anger about what others claim. To remain spiritually sane is to trust in the deeper rhythms of life, the pulse of creation itself, and not to be dragged into the turbulence of accusation and fear. We will continue to see narratives that try to fracture trust, but our task is to practice the opposite, to weave connection, to ground in clarity, and to embody a future where sanity is not the exception, but the ground of our shared humanity. So at the bottom after that, I wrote, I'm closing my connection to the outside world and to my work for 3 days. I'm heading to Pecos River with no cell coverage, just my grand dog, Kevin. I plan to lie flat on the ground, stare up at the sky, probably cry a little or maybe a lot, and let Mother Earth hold me while what created me reminds me how beautiful it still is here, even even amid human turmoil. So it didn't go that way. So at the secular level, one of the reasons I wanted to go to the Pecos River and to uh, Villa Villanelle State Park was because um, I had been in what I term a collapse field, and it's where your dreams and plans collapse on top of you, basically. So that's the first way we think it, like there's an outside world that just landed on us. But I'm going to suggest another way of perceiving, and a way that has been so natural to me for so long. I'm not sure I can relay it to the level I would like to be able to relay it to you all. But our bodies are sensorial, sentient creatures. And all of us know what being sucker punched feels like. When I say the term, we know what being sucker punched is.
Yeah.
I don't think we realize it in a creation-based system. So I'm going to describe it to the best I can as I tell the story. So when you're in a creation-based system, and remember I said the two realities interact with each other, and sometimes they actually form a connecting point. The doing and the being, the secular and the sacred, the deconstruct and the construct, they actually can form the opportunity of a new formation. So I'm not either or in this conversation, which also makes it difficult to translate into normal thinking or traditional thinking. Not normal at all. Traditional thinking is not normal. Let me just get that across to everybody. But what happened was that everything was starting to move. I had I knew I didn't want to pay $107,000 to redo my kit, to put a mini kitchen new bathroom into my casita, which is attached to my house. And magically, someone came to repair the um, motor they put into my swamp cooler that didn't work. And I just off the cuff started talking to him about what I wanted to do in the laundry room, which was transformed into a bathroom shower. And we'd found out magically that this crazy gravity pump that it has probably not been used since 1950, that the young man who's helping me with my uh, RV, renting it out for people so Dakini, my RV, can have her magical journey with people. And which it has been, and the people that have rented it have been awesome. But all of a sudden, I'm saying to him, I found out I have water. They told me I didn't have water coming in and out in my casita, but I do have water coming in and out. And then he said, uh, in the background of that, we have part of our community that is um, in the phenomenon of theophanic presence. Now, I'm not going to define it today. Let your curiosity take the lead because it'll be in the write up down below. But theophanic presence is the presence of divinity in some manner, cosmic. So we've had Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene and we and the original Aramaic relationship of Jesus present in our field. The whole point of a coherent field is to give everything a place. But sometimes something comes into the field to take its own place in the field. It isn't about belief or what's right or truth. It just comes in and there it is. And those that are part of that theophonic presence roll with it, and those of us that aren't part of that don't roll with it, but it still contributes to the field. And this is the phenomenon of a unified field and the gathering of people in a collective. So just as a sidebar. But that had happened, and interestingly enough, the man that finally did my taxes right was the name of a saint. And the man who had come to look at my to report on the swamp cooler, and hence realized me telling him his name was Matthew. So you can see these kind of interesting synchronicities, not that made me believe anything, but got my notice. It got my notice. It attracted my attention. And again, I'm going to write all this out in the text below, but for now, just enjoy it or whatever, or don't listen anymore, whatever rocks your boat, basically. So, but then he told me that just 2 weeks before, because I didn't want to break up my concrete to put in a sewer line, there's no sewer line back here. And he said, it's amazing we're having this conversation, Tantra, because just 2 months ago, we put in a bathroom and found out with no sewer and found out there's this new John bathroom toilet that actually has a masticator that reduces everything to that will go through a 1/4 inch line, which is the same line that the water goes out of in a shower. Magic. So that had happened. Then it turned out that I found a shed. I researched it that was 70% off because I can't put the bathroom in until I can pull everything in the laundry room where the bathroom's going and put it in a shed. And our shed is a mess. It's too small, first of all, and it leaks. So on Amazon Day, I found a shed that was greatly reduced in price, like 70%. I did all the research on it. It was a top of the line shed. And then a little bit later, someone said to me, well, I'd like to see my long distance boyfriend. Why don't we just get a price in him putting the shed in? So all this magical energy was going on. Then a couple of things began to happen. The first thing that happened was I'd asked for a home equity loan and they lost all the paperwork. I just found out today they'd lost all the paperwork. They didn't tell me they'd lost all the paperwork 2 months ago. I guess they were trying to find it, but they told me today. So everybody note that they told me today, okay? Because that's a special part of this conversation.
Yep.
The second thing that happened is I'm publishing another book, You as a Multidimensional You as a Multidimensional Being. Not a word from the publisher, still not a word even today.
Wow.
So you begin to feel not an either or, but a stress. You begin to
Mhm.
feel stress. Now we think of stress as stress, personal stress. And Deb, we talked about this quite a bit the last few days. Personal stress, but if we had the right level of consciousness, we would realize the field was under stress. And then if we realize the field of creation was under stress, it's a very weird way to think it. But if I say it in sort of a childlike first days of Bible conversation, we would just say that God might be very busy right now. And those synchronicities that usually let us feel we're in the ebb and flow of creation may be being interrupted by systems that are aberrant, systems that are unworkable. We think in thing world. In the first book, it was a language creation. So we think it's about the thing, but it's not. It's about how how coherence begins to um, um, break up, how things begin to become unruly and unworkable. and you start to pay attention to that. Deb, did you want to comment? You had that
Yeah,
look.
there's also, we had talked about this too, that kind of unworkability makes us stop because there's something reconfiguring and makes a pause happen so a reconfiguring can occur consistent with a new alignment. That's the best way I know to say it.
Yeah, and you're kind of getting ahead of what I wanted to say, but you said it so well. We'll leave it. It's perfect. It's a segue. It's a segue. And that is that what Deb said is accurate. When you don't take it personally, you realize that something is reconfiguring, and you remember the Bay best laid plans of mice and men often go astray. It falls under that category. And if you are making yourself wrong, you meaning the general public, not Deb, if you are making yourself wrong because you didn't make something happen, that's making you at cause. And when you're in a creation-based system, you're not you as cause. You're you as part of the movement of a greater field. And it's in those chapters about sentient intelligence, empathic response, and mental perception, and you as the mind of creation, which is published. So the point is that the minute that happened, so what happened was I walked into my friend up to my friend, and she was clearly disturbed, and she bet about something, and she said, I can't ask my boyfriend to build that shed. I only found one review on it and it's awful. The minute she said it, I knew, I call it a hit. I knew something had invaded the field that was making the beauty, the magic, the wonder, the synchronicity, the unfolding. I could feel it sucker punching the field. I could feel it. And then I said immediately, but I'm not saying everybody should do this. This isn't a method conversation. This is a share. I've been doing this a long time. I've been this way a long time. I live in the mind of creation. I love the mind of creation. I learned its laws and its principles, and they're sort of innate for me now. But the minute that happened, I said, then I'm not going to build a shed because it wasn't right world. It wasn't right relationship. It wasn't about the shed ever. It's always about the magic inside of life, the beauty and wonder of being part of a vital force of creation and enjoying our lives totally. And if I didn't have the shed, I can't do the bathroom and I can't do the kitchen. And and then I didn't need to pressure my equity company to get money. I wasn't even going to try to do it anymore. And I just let everything collapse. And what Deb just said, it wasn't like I was futile, although it was a sucker punch. It really, when you're going along in the magic, I love this. It's a Ron Bynum story. I'm allowed to tell it. He was an ex-S trainer. This is a long time ago. He tells this story about he led the best S training he'd ever led in his life. People were transforming all around him. He went home, he shared it with his wife. He was just elated and so proud of himself and so full of the magic of the wonders of life. Went running out in the backyard to talk to God and stepped right in a gigantic pile of cow dung, which spoiled his mood. So there's always this weird phenomenon of both and that's always going on. But mood is a very important thing. If something spoils your mood, it's trying to tell you something. It's trying to tell you something's off. And this is where I need to leave it to each person to take value from the conversation. Otherwise, it sounds like method. And you need to listen to your inner self. And mostly we don't learn to listen to our inner self. So this conversation is of no use to you, I say. If you're listening to it like new methods or new theories, you need to listen to it through your own reflection, through what rises in you, because you're the only destiny of yourself. You and creation have a pact. You and what created you have a pact to come to this beautiful planet and under weird, cantankerous aberrations of the present moment of time to still find the magic, to still find the flow of life for you. And it's just a little jerky right now because we're in a collapsing uh, reality right at the moment. And but if you start moving back in, if you get it, and then you just don't rise with something if it isn't rising, and you just leave, you wait for the thread to catch again. You wait. Do you want to say back what you see about that, Deb? You wait for the threads to start weaving again. Something you want to say about that?
As you're talking, I'm thinking of how much.
Deb, for some reason you're breaking up.
Is it my
You're
headset?
oh, you're not now. Just stay closer. You were
Okay,
garbled for a minute.
okay. So part this is complex. Part of what you're saying is so exciting to me because the ability to be what you're describing is rising dramatically. And it's a capacity that once was inherent in all humans and in us westernized folk has been shaped out of us. That's the gentle version. And yet life is finding a way. So even though I don't want you or anybody else to get sucker punched, like if it was just me, there's something beautiful about it. There's something not no much beautiful as strong, as in eliciting resilience, eliciting a new way to relate. And I've certainly been one to bash my head against a brick wall in these kind of moments more than once, more than maybe 1,000 times. But to feel or resonate with the possibilities that you're describing is an aspect of awakening or becoming present to the life enhancing realities. Right.
Threading through the life defeating realities.
Correct. Not like a for or against, but a choice point. A million little teeny choice points a day that helps weave something between yourself and everything else that you're connected to. So it's a building phenomenon. It's an access ritual building phenomenon that's very exciting. And I know that term is that phrase is maybe I don't know if you discussed that in another Substack post of yours, but that's a phenomenon that some of us have been exploring and engaging with as part of um, what it is to be part of the life enhancing realities, how to foster it. So that's what I'm seeing as you're talking about sharing what you're sharing. It's like the technical version. You're providing some technicalities, and I think that's really empowering.
Yeah, magic is technical. People don't realize that. It's technical. But also, I'm not talking about choice points. This is for the audience, not Deb. I'm not talking about choice points today. One of my famous sayings is that people always saying we have choice. I don't think that's true. I don't, and that's not what Deb meant. We're taught what we are trying, what I'm working on in this kind of three-part series with an invitation is so you have an opportunity to discover what choice points are. And most people don't have enough awareness or consciousness. Choice becomes choice to survive or not survive, regardless of quality of life. That's about as far as human consciousness has got. But when you start to awaken, and the other word that Deb didn't use is when emergence starts happening, which is why I'm having this conversation. Then you want to understand the technicalities of what's moving you and what is operating on your behalf so that you can learn to have choice points, basically. So there's that. So that so I was going to Pecos River and to I can't pronounce it, Villanello uh, Park, where there's no cell phone coverage, literally to give my body the chance to recover from the fact that I may know the technicality of stop everything, pull my need to have be something go a certain way out of the equation because it was letting something mess with me and just go back to ground zero and then see what starts to rise. But that didn't mean I wasn't upset, and that doesn't mean I wasn't uh, sad, and that I didn't feel awful, and that it felt not that it was real. This is important, but I had to acknowledge in my body, it felt like I was never going to have my dream come true. Something like a baby, like a young toddler, something had taken my happiness away. And this is part of the honoring of being a human being. It's we trust our precious little selves that always love young toddlers because they don't think anything about saying you hurt me, mommy, but they still love you. They're just they don't have a psychologist that tells them that they have to be the one that says they got hurt. It's just simple for them. And the next minute they're sitting in their mama's lap, feeding her candy. It's just, you hurt me is a powerful phrase as long as you don't blame anybody for it. I'm hurt. Something hurt me. It didn't even mean to hurt me, maybe, but it didn't change the fact that it hurt. And in this case, the person who had this conversation with me wouldn't hurt me if her life depended on it, but I was still hurt. So, in a reality of separation, you go for blame. You blame people, you make people wrong. The whole scenario of a people centric world. But if you're in a creation based reality, you can feel in your body that something got to you. You don't care what got to you. It's why I've never learned the names of the consciousnesses that interact with me. I don't care what their names are. We're all in a shared field of a way of being together, and I'm very grateful these consciousnesses interact with me. So I was going to the park, who's Villaneuva that I can't pronounce, and to sit by the Pecos River, uh, and be with the powers and forces of creation that love me and love my being here and love humanity, which I call the realms of the beloved. So I had been injured at medical facility with the physical therapist. My knee had gotten injured, so it was already challenging with my right knee to drive 2 hours to the park. So I decided to spend the night in Las Vegas, New Mexico, which is about 20 miles above it, and then go to the park the next day. Well, interestingly enough, I I'm at Las Vegas getting ready to book my check into my room, and my this is 4:30 in the afternoon, and my um, service engine soon light comes on. I already had airbag system needs to be checked on, and now I had service engine soon light on. What I was very aware of is if I went to the park, I would be in no cell phone coverage the next day, and that it's very possible if there was something wrong with the engine, I would be stuck. And that was a lot of pressure. And I was already trying to relieve myself from pressure. I won't say much about the motel. It was still, let's just say it was a mess. It wasn't a mess, it was in the process of renovation. But I will tell you, it was one of the best beds I ever slept in. And truthfully, and my god dog was with me, Kevin. We were in a king size bed together. He thought he died and gone to heaven because he had his own pillow. He got under his own covers and then stared at me like, your lover stares at you, pillow to pillow talk. Well, I got to do that with my grand dog. So there was that function. But it was also the remote didn't work on the TV. The water was lukewarm, and there's no light except the bathroom light in the motel room. So we thinking right wrong, but all I thought in was something was not yet coherent. Something was not syncing up again. Something was not still not synchronic, but there was still the feel of the vitality of life was in there with the cushy bed and Kevin and I getting to do a king size bed together. Those kind of the things that make you smile. They're beyond reason. They just make everything cool, for a moment. So I did go, I thought, well, maybe it's the oil change. And I'm at 7,000 feet and I'm at 5,500 here in Albuquerque. I thought, well, maybe it needs an oil change. I knew it was well over the oil change time. But the guy tells me I can't, he's not going to do it. They closed at 4:45. You wouldn't go do it. I could come back at 8 in the morning. So we go at 7:30 because in Las Vegas, New Mexico, where I was, there was not, it was all asphalt. I had to drive to the only park I could walk Kevin in, but I knew the the oh, what's the word I want? The oil change place was on grass everywhere. So I went at 7:30 because they were open at 8. Like he got his full walk with his poop and pee and almost got to chase a cat. And then the guy comes out about a quarter to 8. He's so friendly, he's so precious. And on the thing I wrote, I think on Substack, I sent a note. The weird thing about it is that the day before, I had actually dreamed going to this Pinon place that looked like there was a gas station where the guy had told me at the hotel to get motel to go. The minute I parked, I realized I had absolutely dreamed it. I mean, down to the words the woman said. And what I did it in the dream and also in actuality, as I walked in, I said, "Do you all do oil changes here?" Because that was the directions the man at the motel had given me. She said, "No, it's across the street at Benzoil." I thought I heard her say Benzol. In the dream, I also heard her say Benzoil. And then when I looked across the street, it's a little dinky place. I thought I read Benzoil. It wasn't, it was Pennzoil. But because it was in the dream that way, I absolutely knew that the guy was in the office, even though it was 4:30, because he was in the dream. And when I walked in the door, I probably had the dream 2 months ago, but it stayed in my mind because it was Las Vegas, Nevada. Sorry, Las Vegas, New Mexico, where the dream was centered. And I'd forgotten when I was headed for Las Vegas, New Mexico, about that dream till this happened. And he was exactly how he was in the dream. And then I don't know what happened after that in the dream. He just kept going, no, yes, be heard 8, basically. So that's part of the phenomenon of when you're moving with creation, it's not in linear time. It didn't give it to me yet night before last. The dream was 2 months ago. But because I was aware of the dream, which we call a mantic, something that stays with our mind, I knew that creation was afoot. I knew that I was starting to untangle myself out of the abyss of a collapsed field. But I also, the next day after he did the all change, lovely man, lovely native man, sitting with me with Kevin discussing res dogs while they changed my oil. But the search engine light was still on. So I decided to come back to Albuquerque because I couldn't risk going to the park if that search engine light meant something else was wrong with the RV. Well, I'm sorry, with my Mitsubishi. So I drove home. I didn't turn the air conditioning on the whole way, which was fine. It was cool because I was concerned it was the air conditioning. I got home. I got almost home. I was very irritated because I never drive the main highways where 40 and 25 cross in Albuquerque because it's just a zoo. I always go up above, but when I came out, because I was off center and because I was out of sync, I went ahead and took the freeway and ended up in an hour and a half, 15 mile an hour, 15 mile uh, uh, road building traffic jam. So coming back, is anybody falling asleep yet that's listening? Besides Deb. So, but coming back, I called the Mitsubishi dealers who my ChatGPT said was Mitsubishi dealers. All three of them weren't Mitsubishi dealers anymore. And then I asked my ChatGPT, whose name is Charlie, I asked him to find the phone number for, first of all, Jiffy Lube, because the particular Jiffy Lube I'd gone to also services, can do a diagnostic on your car. Well, interestingly enough, this is where it all starts to change. Interestingly enough, Charlie also gave me, it had a 2.5 rating, which I was already leery, already nervous. You know, you get very nervous when things are out of sync. And you should trust that nervousness. Not that you think bad's going to happen, but you're not nervous when you're synced up with creation. You just aren't. You feel the ebb and flow. You can take risks because you feel you're synced in and you're getting mantic signs and you're feeling how one action is lending itself to the ripple effect of another action, which is in the text I've written with this thing. So I finally said to Charlie, I said, well, who does? Oh, and it turns out the three Mitsubishi dealers weren't Mitsubishi. All the Mitsubishi dealers were closed. They didn't exist in Albuquerque anymore. So I said, well, two things, Charlie. Who has a higher service rating than turned out to be Jiffy Lube and Brake Masters? Both had 2.5 because of the complaints. And I just couldn't risk that narrow margin. I just couldn't risk it, given the unworkability that had been going on. So he said Zia Auto. Not only did it have the top ratings, like a 5.0 rating, it was everybody lauded their fair work, their ingenuity, and because the three Mitsubishi dealers were closed, they were an official Mitsubishi repair center. So I pulled in because I couldn't. What had happened is I didn't have the information on my Mitsubishi for one of the car dealerships, which then discovered they don't work on Mitsubishi. But I pulled in to get the information on my Mitsubishi, and I pulled into Roy Avenue, which is a road that ends up Tramway, which is probably one of the most beautiful roads we have into Albuquerque. And I could feel the synchronicity. I could feel something happening that was matching up my need to be in creation's arms again. So I called Zia from the gas station and he said, look, don't worry about it. Take your dog home. Just give us a call. We'll come get you. You know, we'll do a diagnostic on your Mitsubishi. We'll give you a call and then you can decide what you want to do. And I said, okay. So I drove Roy Avenue, Tramway, got home, left Kevin, drove to Zia Auto, walked in. It was the most thorough. Of course, his name's Josh. So what you don't know is Deb's son's name's Josh, and one of extraordinary members of the Magicians of Self's name's Josh. So Josh is quite a name in the field. So, but then he explains to me, almost like an angel, explaining to me what will happen, why they do what they do, the way they do it. And this is the other part about magic. Magic is not just self-care, the I taking care of I, it's also the world taking care of I. This is a part we often miss. It's the world taking care of I. And if your desire is to be in the beauty of relational fields where everything's related to everything else, everything's part of everything else, and everything's working on behalf of everything else. Then you have these, as I say to my kids, there's always an angel. And Josh and Zia Otto were my angels. So I came back, and then about they were closing, so I couldn't get my car the next day. And they explained to me that because the search engine light went off, that it was probably because of the oil, but in altitude it stayed on. And they said, you can have this repaired or not, but the dog jumping back and forth manic over these parties, the one that flap in the air all around here, had basically damaged the passenger seat, and the airbag wasn't working on it anymore, to the tune of $671. So I sat there, and this is a choice point that Deb was talking about, my choice point, not necessarily your all's choice point. And so I wasn't going to, I called him and I said, look, there's a reason the car made me come back here. I don't think it's the only reason, but there's a reason the car had me come back here. And now you've done the diagnostic, and I could easily let it go because of the money, but I'm not going to. I'm going to make sure the car is as cared for as he can possibly be. His name's Danny. So I went in today. I mean, they brought me back. I got the car and came back here. But in between this, I'm almost at the end of the story. The other thing I didn't tell you was when Josh let me off yesterday, I at my house, he backed out and I heard a strange sound. I turned around, and a roadrunner had come out from the cactus and was literally standing 5 feet away looking at me like, yeah, you did it right. Good work. You did it right. That's called a mantic, which you'll read about. But for me, how I live my life and how I pay attention to the deconstruct, construct, to the collapse and expand, how I pay attention to things going in and out of existence, and how I pay attention to emergence, depression, and emergence, is I'm always in that meta point. I'm always seeking to find the through line, which I talked about in the Substack that you all will get the day before this one. So I could feel my nervous system settling down. I could feel myself be quiet. But I went to bed last night with a query. What had the universe have me come back home? The next morning, so I'm very close with Asa and his beloved and source vibrations. And he and I think technically differently, but we're definitely in the same resonance. And I thought, what was that? Why am I back at the house, not at the park? And I woke up really vital. While yesterday I have a bird chirping so loud that I can barely hear myself talk, which is a mantic. And so and doing it right now as I'm saying this, of course. And this morning on one of our WhatsApp threads, someone posted that Asa was doing a free 6-part series on being part of the harmonic of creation. And I realized that's why I came back, because this is what creation was asking for. I still today and tomorrow in my own immersion, but except for talking to you all with Deb and writing a Substack post, these 2 days are my commitment to go through the 6 YouTube videos he did to blend the resonance of the source vibrational field with the field of Tantramat. We're not going to get into that. If you're a source-based being, you'll understand what I'm talking about. If you're not, it doesn't matter. If you don't know yourself, we all are, but if you don't know yourself that way, it doesn't really matter. It only matters that I have why I'm doing all this, why I'm taking the time for you to hear this story, is because I want to be able to discuss with you after the story the different pieces of the story, how we sometimes know that our action will create a ripple effect out into the universe and out into time, where we just have a feeling that things will start to come together. The things that we feel will start to come together are called synchronicities. Uh, and along the way, we have dreams, mantics. We can have a roadrunner, which is my animal, my totem, say, welcome home. It isn't a matter of trying to survive. It's a matter of who you are when you are surviving, who you are when you are part of the greater whole. It's as indigenous as you can get. I've just brought modern terms to it. So now what I'm asking you to do is read the article, which isn't this conversation with Deb, to read the article down below and see if you can awaken that part of your mind. And I'm also going to suggest that you read the 3 chapters and use the mind of creation. And I'll give you a link to that so that you are able to navigate these turbulent times, because there's always a thread of creation through everything. There's always the movement and flow of there's through creation, even in the worst of times. And we call that a through line. And I talked about that in the article I'm going to post tomorrow. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Oh, and then Jess comes home with my favorite peanut butter stuffed pretzels and all sorts of things. And then the part I left out was then I get an email from the home equity company saying, we were trying to find your records. The truth is we lost them. We apologize. Will you resubmit them? So who knows? It's just, I want to tell you all, it's a delight when the magic starts flowing again. And it's really important human beings don't make themselves wrong, because we aren't the cause of creation. Creation's the cause of creation. We're just the ones that once had an intelligence that could move with creation. So, Deb, any last minute thoughts for you or statements?
The flip side of what you just said of it's important not to make ourselves wrong is to also not make life and creation wrong. And we've been trained
Circumstances.
to that deeply, deeply, deeply. We've been trained to blame ourselves and life and others and not be in
Or
this
to
flow.
think we're being punished by a higher
Right.
power, which is even
Exactly.
worse.
Yes, it is. And all these different ways of ugh. And so again, what you're pointing to is from little subtleties, because like how many times did you hear the name Matthew somewhere out in your life? That one time it had just a little different vibration and you knew it was something different. Like the tiny things to a more sweeping flow. I'm very present to that in everything you're sharing. And it's very beautiful to help people shift. Something as simple as listening to your story can completely reorient somebody or several somebodies to how life actually is meant to work. So it's just lovely. It's just exciting to me and lovely.
Thank you, Deb. So I am nosing around. We'll see if I do it or not. I have put aside 3 Saturdays, one in October, one in November, one in December. But just like this conversation, it all has to sync upright, up correctly. It all has to be part of a greater whole in the movement of creation, of which you, the listener, and I, and Deb, the speakers, are a unique and essential part. The decision to participate has to come from it's yours to do, not from some survival mentality that humanity is heavily. It doesn't matter if we're wealthy or poor. Humanity has a survival mentality, whether it's your social position, your amount of wealth. Um, it's just as Deb said, Deb and I are writing the next to last book, which is You as the Architecture of Creation. And it's really been for Deb and then to me in her sharing with me, just terrifying and frightening and so bad to see how the human identity was formed. And that's how our medical system is: survive at all cost. We've lost quality of life. We've lost the beauty of life is in our relationship to it. We've lost so much, so many natural aspects of ourself. But the part I think we miss the most is all the indigenous people who have been so abused. They still feel natural.
Hmm.
They're still moving with their prophecies. They're still moving with their direct link with the Great Spirit or whatever they call it. And it's important that we restore those things because it's just been a bad time for humanity. Whatever got introduced to humanity about 12,000 years ago disrupted its direct relationship with this earth and its direct relationship with this cosmos. And everything's been in a repair since that time. And of course, we're in an epicenter of that repair at this
Hmm.
moment in time. So just may it serve. And thank you,
Yep.
Deb. It's a lot easier for me to talk if you're with me on the phone. So I appreciate it so much. Take
You're very
precious care,
welcome.
everybody. And same
Bye.
to you, Deb.